Hi. So in today's video, I'll be telling you about the chapter in Piglet entitled Hypnosis. So we are going to be talking about, a few memories, few experiences with, the feeling of tiredness, with food, with body expressions, and with visual perception. So if that's something for you, then stay tuned and off we go. So when working at McDonald's, everything goes back to McDonald's. When working there for 12 hours at the beginning, I had a strong feeling of tiredness. And then I changed the shift and I was working 8 hours a day. And I felt the same amount of tiredness than when I worked 12 hours. And even when I was considering to get back to the, working 12 hours, I just could not stand I could not stand even longer, it felt like I couldn't, but it was impossible to be that tired, because I used to do long distance walking and I know that I have this endurance. And then, that was the time, obviously, when I was discovering witchcraft. So I was discovering the work of covert hypnosis. If, for example, I was having a sandwich during the break, and that sandwich was with salmon pasta, and I dropped something, but I had the thought that it wasn't mine. I didn't do it. Like, she did that. Okay, so it sounds weird, yeah, but in my mind, a thought occurred. But how do you know? And you can't just go and explain something that you spotted, like, how do you know, to yourself? Because it doesn't make any sense. You just spot it and you know how you spot it. You don't have to verbalize it in thoughts. But in thoughts, I go on and I answer, like, it wasn't gradually coming out of the sandwich. Just, it was too big amount of it and it just all of a sudden dropped. So therefore, I had this impression. Or I I had the same impression with the cookie that somebody standing in front of the flat, uh, the same one, actually the same woman who worked with me at McDonald's, started to work in the bar next door, so that I don't know. But she stood back to me, and even when she stood back, she just made that she caused with energy that I dropped the cookie that I had in my hand. And I started to, when I was writing Piglet, I thought about all those contexts when, you have something and you drop it, or somebody eats something and they drop it in front of you, and maybe you gave them something to eat and they drop it. So then there's this thought circulating, oh, that you didn't want to give it to them. Or, my brother-in-law asks for a tissue, my sister asks for a tissue, and he gives a tissue, but he drops it before she happen to pick it up, get it. So therefore, there is the interpretation that he didn't want to share it really and truly, right? Yeah. And then it enters your way of thinking, and then somebody borrows you something, somebody gives you something, and when they drop it, you think that they didn't want to really share it, or they didn't want to really give it to you. And even with body language and body expression, I would say that I have experienced some miscommunication, because sometimes it happens that I wanted to say something and I felt like I had an itchy nose, or which is obviously, yeah, it's one of the gestures that speaks for relocation. So this is a very primal gesture that speaks with, when children lie, then they cover their mouth. And adults have a very similar gesture, but it could be, stretching their nose. It could be having something to do around the mouth. And when they are very aware when we lie, and they want to cover it, they work very hard on relocating that gesture and making something else instead with their hands when they lie. So they will go for touching their ear, or they would go for, eating the arm from the glasses, or they would go like the psychologist Anna Leszkovich, never touches her face. That's also not totally unusual, that's also, she would use the pen. So I have mentioned this to you several times already, I know. But the thing is, with the energy work and with covert hypnosis, it may happen that someone has this, feels like having a scratchy nose and they have to scratch. And I got myself in it that back then I could recall a situation when I was sitting with my boyfriend like 15 years ago, and I was like, I don't understand. I know I'm telling you the truth, and I don't understand why am I feeling like, I have to scratch my nose right now. And I verbalized it and I said it like, this is how it is. Like, I don't get it. Why? Like, this is the biology, and this is me knowing for a fact and searching if there's any discrepancy, that is consistency in what I say. Well, no, there wasn't. So I didn't get it. Um, yeah. But occultists do that because they know that you can go and read a scientific paper, you can read a book about body language, you can learn about it, and then it's easier for you to spot a liar. And these people, they most of the time, most of the say of what they say is a lie, because they adjust their reality to you. They tell you what you want to hear or what it seems that you want to hear, but it doesn't have to be a good thing. They can speak to your desires, they can speak to your fears too. More often, I would say they rely on fear, on the use of fear. So you have to be aware of that too, but that doesn't mean that, then then you can't judge anyone and you have to be open-minded. Well, you should be open-minded, that's for sure, but it's just like, don't give up, just ask more questions, ask many, many more questions. It's what I have learned, and that with when they have to specify and tell you more or retell the story, then they will lose it sooner or later, and they will have to use more body language. Usually you will have a thought occurring in your mind that, oh no, it's not so important, and don't explore it better. Or yes, explore it better. And it's also something that I have learned, when watching CIA agents on YouTube. They also say that retelling a story and telling a story is the thing where you can caught a liar. uh, yeah, and also looking possibly at the frequency of that gesture, of that, stretching nose. I also experienced, having my visual perception affected. So, there was a time when in Holland, when I would go to work, I would see like 3 black cats, and I was wondering like, what else and why 3 of you? Like, how come, guys? Like what? and and I had a thing with the black cat, although in the past I didn't get it because I lived with the black cat. We had it at home and I loved it, so it was like dear. But it's just was yet another thing that subconsciously somehow, I didn't identify it back then, but I think nowadays I understand it better. Like, a cult's work is to look at your desires, look at your experience, and try to diminish it, try to give you a worse type of experience, like, giving you a yes and going to the bar to have the great night. But it's never a great night with somebody who intentionally pretends to be boring to give you a lower experience quality, so that they would make you angry, dissatisfied, and so on. And yeah, and more to it than that. You go out, you put some makeup on, you choose your clothes, you want to have fun, to have an interesting night. You don't have to necessarily meet somebody, you just want to have a nice chat with the person you're meeting. Even when it's that much, then they sit and pretend to be boring. So that can be the example of lower type of, experience. But the thing is, like, they do it constantly. They constantly check with your Akashic records, and they constantly try to modify something. So, they try to manipulate your feelings. So, I didn't know it most of my life, but I think this is what the black cat represents, because it represents the witch, right? The witches somehow in the books are always depicted with black cats. Um, but now that I think, now that when we understand something, it actually helps us. Uh, it helps us to understand, to gain knowledge, to learn some protective mechanisms, like learning to keep your Akashic records closed, and so on and so on. So it diminishes any fears. Yeah. So, I started to tell you about the visual perception being affected, and that came with a story of meeting with black cats. So, yeah, when working at McDonald's, I would go home, and then the cat just passed my way, and I turned around, and there was no cat; it was gone. So there was just one tiny bush, and the cat was just running so fast that I think it had to stop somewhere, So I was sure, like, I was sure it was just visual perception affected. On when I was thinking about, in the flat where I was living at the time, there was a hole in the corridor in the wall. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking that a rat would come out. I don't know why did I think something like that, but when coming back from work from the night shift, I would see something coming downstairs, something brown. So I think that was a visual perception affected. It wasn't a real rat, but maybe it was supposed to pretend to be a rat. I don't know. But the way I know it was visual perception affected is because of lack of the contour. So the picture wasn't so sharp. It was as if out of focus, as if you were taking a photo in a camera and there was no focus. So it's like blurred, right? Something like that. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for today's video. And Piglet and Amelia are on sale, and you will find all the info in the description of the video. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.